Hey guys, I hope that you're having another great day, and I hope that you're ready to finish chapter 10. We started it yesterday, and the twins finally made it to the Red Riding Hood kingdom, where they're hoping to get a piece of Little Red Riding Hood's basket for the wishing spell. And they ran into a couple new characters. They ran into Jack and his beanstalk and the golden harp that Jack owns. And they started talking to the harp, and they found out that Jack was going to be going to the Red Riding Hood castle. And so now they're trying to see if they could tag along with him to go to the castle because they've never been before. And so they're asking, and the harp is asking Jack if they can go, but he's kind of grumpy because we found out that he loves somebody that moved away. And so let's see what's going to happen. I'm really curious. I'm really excited to finish this chapter. Please, Mr. Jack, Alex pleaded. We won't be in any trouble. Come on, Jack, make their day, the harp pleaded. All right, Jack said. Jack turned and began traveling toward the town. The twins ran after him. Thanks so much, Alex called back to the harp. You're welcome, the harp said. Come back and visit me, please. Jack was a very fast walker. His legs were much longer than the twins, so they found it difficult to keep up with him. It's very kind of you to let us tag along, Alex said to Jack, but he never looked back up from the ground. You're not much of a talker, are you? Connor said. I don't have much to say, Jack said. Connor nodded at him. He understood completely. As they neared the town, Alex pulled Connor aside. How lucky is this, she said. If we get inside the castle and get a hold of the basket, we'll be out of this kingdom in no time. They traveled into the town and reached the castle. There was a set of large wooden doors at the castle's entrance. Jack knocked on the door. A moment later, a small window in the middle of the door opened and a set of eyes appeared. Who goes there? Said a voice on the other side of the doors. It's Jack, Jack said. Again. Who is that behind you? The voice demanded, and the eyes looked over Jack's shoulder to Alex and Connor. They awkwardly waved. What are your names again? Jack asked the twins. Alex and Connor, Alex told him, and gave him a thumbs up. These are my friends Alex and Connor. They're accompanying me to the castle today, Jack said. The doors opened and the twins followed Jack into the castle. It felt like a condensed version of Cinderella's palace. The halls weren't quite as long and the furniture wasn't quite as nice. There were many portraits hung on the walls, but they all were of Queen Red Riding Hood at various ages and different poses, each one more grand than the last. The twins waited with Jack in a hall outside another set of doors. Jack knocked on the doors immediately and took a seat on a bench outside them. This always takes a moment, Jack said. A series of footsteps and sounds of rushing about came from the other side of the doors. Wait, don't open the door, I'm not ready yet, someone whispered. Hand me that cape. No, not that one, the other one, with the hood. Hurry. Jack began to whistle as he waited. How do I look? What about my dress? Does it seem all right to you? The whispers continued. All right, I'm ready. Let him in, quickly. Remember, Little Red Riding Hood, the harp said, has a crush on Jack, so... Jack stood up just as the doors were opened by a pink-faced and out-of-breath handmaiden. She escorted Jack inside and the twins followed. They entered a long room with tall windows on both sides. The walls were covered in more portraits of the queen. Looking up from the floor was a giant wolf head with red eyes and a set of sharp teeth. It looked just like one of the wolves the twins had seen in the dwarf forest, and it alarmed them at first. Before they discovered, it was just a wolfskin rug spread out on the floor. The twins knew without asking that the rug must have been the big bad wolf himself at one point. At the very end of the room, perched elegantly, almost too elegantly, on a large throne was Queen Red Riding Hood. Hello, Jack, Red Riding Hood said. Red Riding Hood was a very pretty woman around the same age as Jack. She had bright blue eyes and blonde hair that was done up glamorously behind her crown. She wore a long red gown with a matching hooded cape and pink corset. She wore a necklace with a massive diamond. Her shoulders were completely bare, and she wore a pair of long gloves with a dozen sparkly rings on her finger. She was showing too much skin, wearing too much makeup, and was dressed too well for the middle of the day. Hello, Red, Jack said. What a surprise, I wasn't even expecting you, she said. Uh-huh, Jack said. And I see you brought guests, Red Riding said. She was not happy to see that she and Jack were not alone. Yes, this is Alex and Connor, Jack said. Hello, Alex said bashfully. What's up, Red? Connor said, and was then elbowed by his sister. Hello, Red said, behind a clenched and very fake smile. Welcome to my castle. Please have a seat. Red clapped her hands, and two servants placed a large, cushy chair right next to her throne for Jack to sit on. They brought Alex and Connor each a small stool to sit on some distance away from Red and Jack. Jack moved the chair back away from the throne a couple feet before sitting on it. He handed Red the basket he had made for her. Is this for me? Red asked him. Oh, how thoughtful of you. You are just too sweet for words. I'll cherish it. You always do, Jack said. So, tell me, what's new with you? Red asked Jack. She was leaning toward him as far as she possibly could without falling off of her throne. Nothing much, Jack said. Same old, same old. His body language made it obvious that he was ready to leave from the minute he'd sat down. How's the kingdom? Oh, I never bother myself with all the talk of economy and security and peasant needs and blah, 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 Red said. My granny takes care of all that for me. She's much better at it than I would be anyway. Red got tired of holding the basket. She snapped her fingers, and her handmaiden collected the basket from her. Put it with the others, Red instructed. The handmaiden collected it from her and headed out of the room. The twins figured this was their chance. May we see the others? Alex asked. The others? Red asked. The other baskets, Alex said. Red was looking at her peculiarly. My brother loves baskets. Connor nodded, going along with it. I do. They're my most favorite thing ever, Connor said. You know what they say, life is better with baskets. Red was staring at them as if they were the strangest people she had ever met in her life. If you wish, she said, and shooed them off. Alex and Connor jumped up and followed the handmaiden out of the room and down a hall. Where does Queen Red Riding Hood keep all of her baskets? Alex asked the handmaiden, and then winked at Connor. She wasn't very good at playing dumb. She has a chamber dedicated entirely to the baskets, the handmaiden said. So she has a basket room? Connor asked. Yes, and if you received as many as she did a year, you would too, the handmaiden said. How many are we talking about? Connor asked. You'll see, she said. The handmaiden opened a door, and the three of them walked inside. The room was twice the size of the room they had just been in, and was filled from floor to ceiling with thousands and thousands of baskets. Some were on shelves, some were stacked neatly, and others were just piled around the room. The handmaiden tossed the basket from Jack in a pile on one side of the room. The queen gets them for birthdays, holidays, and any special occasion, the handmaiden said. Some are from villagers, some from friends, others from the monarchs of neighboring kingdoms. Alex and Connor stayed around the room with their mouths open. How would they ever find the basket they were looking for in all of this? Do you mind if we have a look around? Alex managed to say through her shock. I suppose, the handmaiden said. She looked at the twins cautiously and then left them inside the basket room. The twins could barely breathe. They both felt as if a dumbbell had suddenly been tied to their chests. I have never felt so overwhelmed in my life, Connor declared. This is like trying to do the whole summer break packet of homework the day before school starts again, but 1,000 times worse. How are we going to look through all of these? It's not that bad, Alex tried convincing him, but she didn't even convince herself. We just need to start. You take one side, I'll take the other. Let's do this. They split and rapidly began looking through the piles and piles of baskets for the one with the bark rim. They knew they didn't have much time and grew more anxious after each second. They had no idea there could be so many shapes and sizes and designs for baskets. Like snowflakes, each one was different from the next. Alex was paranoid that she had missed it. Connor kept getting splinters and kept shouting, "Ah!" every time it happened. They had been there for almost an hour and still hadn't covered even a fourth of the room. They were making a huge mess. The room was twice as disorganized now as it had been when they'd entered it. Even Alex wasn't hesitating, throwing around baskets that she had already examined. "This is impossible," Connor yelled, kicking a pile of baskets. Just as he kicked the pile, the door swung open, and the handmaiden returned. Alex and Connor froze. She was appalled by the chaos they had caused. "I don't know what on earth you're doing, but I think it's time for you two to leave," she said. The handmaiden escorted them back to the throne room. This time she watched them like a hawk as they sat on their stools. Queen Red Riding Hood was literally hanging off her throne and grabbing a hold of Jack's chair as she talked to him. The twins had never seen Jack look so bored and lifeless. Neither of them had noticed the twins' return. "You know, Jack," Red said, circling his forearm with her finger, "the Red Riding Hood kingdom isn't much of a kingdom without a king. Perhaps you should change the name to Red Riding Hood Queendom," Jack said. Red laughed much harder than she should have. "You're so funny, but that's not what I meant. What I'm trying to tell you, Jack, is that I've never been more ready to get married. If someone asked me for my hand in marriage today, I would say yes. Do you know anyone who might be interested in marrying me and being king? Anyone?" A white dove suddenly flew by one of the windows outside and sat on the window ledge. As soon as Jack saw it, his entire face lit up. His eyes grew wide, and he smiled. For once, he looked happy. He turned to Red. Clearly, she wasn't used to seeing him like this either. The twins could practically see her heart beating out of her chest as excitement filled her body. Was he going to propose? Was this the moment she had been waiting for so long? "Red," Jack said. "Yes, Jack," Red said. "I have to go," Jack said, jumping up and heading out of the throne room. Red almost fell off her throne. "Go?" she said. "Go where?" "Home," Jack called out, not even looking back at her. "I'll see you next week." Red crossed her arms and pouted. He was the only thing preventing her from having everything. The twins felt it was best to leave with Jack, so they followed him out of the castle. "It was wonderful meeting you, Alex. It was wonderful meeting you, Alex, Connor," Jack said, and shook their hands. "Likewise," Alex said. "Thanks again for taking us to the castle." "My pleasure. I hope to run into you someday soon," Jack said, and then headed in the direction of his home with a new bounce in his step. Wonder what's making him so happy. It was very strange. Jack was now acting like the person Alex had always thought he would be. What is this guy's deal? How does someone go from a zombie to a camp counselor in a matter of seconds? Connor said. "I don't know," Alex said, looking after him as he walked away. "He's a very odd man." "Looks like we'll be sneaking into the castle after all," Connor said, and slumped to a seated position on the ground. "At least we know what to expect tonight, and we already went through a good portion of the baskets," Alex said. "We just have to wait until midnight. And in the meantime, I could really use a nap," Connor said. The twins traveled up the street and booked a room at the Shoe Inn. The room had a perfect view of Red Riding Hood's castle. It was somewhere near the shoe's tongue because a set of laces crossed through one of their walls. The room also had a working bathtub, and they both took turns using it, since they hadn't been able to bathe in so long. "That was the best bath I think I'll ever have," Connor said. They both decided to rest for a little bit, and as soon as their bodies touched the bed, they both fell into a deep sleep. They slept for a few hours and woke up shortly before midnight. "What's our game plan for tonight?" Connor said. "It'll be the first time we'll ever be breaking and entering anywhere, so I'm extra anxious." "Let's take account of everything we have now," Alex said, and dumped all of the contents of her bag onto the bed. "We have 2 blankets, a bag of gold coins, a dagger, a lock of Rapunzel's hair, a glass slipper, a map, a journal, and a satchel of food," Alex listed. "We can use the dagger to cut a chunk of wood out from the basket. But it's going to be dark. We'll need some light." "Let's take these lanterns," Connor said, and gathered lanterns that were on the bedsides. "Great," Alex said. "We should plan on leaving the kingdom right after, just in case we run into some trouble. We'll head to the east entrance of the kingdom, and that'll bring us close to the border of the fairy kingdom." Connor lowered his head. "I was so looking forward to coming back to this bed." At 1:45, Alex and Connor gathered all their things, lit their lanterns, and left the shoe inn. They walked across the town to the castle. It was so quiet at night, not even farm animals were up this late. They hid behind Humpty Dumpty's wall and watched through the castle windows as guards patrolled the halls. "Just a few more minutes and I'll leave," Alex said. A few minutes later, they saw fewer and fewer guards walk past the windows. "Are they gone?" Connor asked. "They must be," Alex said. "Let's go." They ran around to the back of the castle. Sorry about that. They ran around to the back of the castle and saw a large kitchen through a set of windows. They hopped across the moat they knew they'd be able to and pulled at the window, like the journal had said. It didn't have a lock, and it opened easily. Alex crawled into the kitchen first. She was as quiet as possible. The only sound she made came from the intense beats of her heart. Connor climbed in after and knocked over a stack of pots and pans. Alex was mortified. "I'm going to kill you," she mouthed at him. "Sorry," he mouthed back at her. They waited for a moment to see if anyone had heard the disturbance, but no one had. The twins left the kitchen and found themselves in a hallway with, to no surprise, more portraits of Red Riding Hood. "That Red Riding Hood sure loves having her portrait painted," Connor said. "Maybe there are so many paintings of her because she's the first monarch the kingdom has ever had. It doesn't have the history the Charming Kingdom has," Alex said. "Or she's just self-obsessed," Connor said. They traveled down the hall, then another one, then up a set of stairs and down another hall. "Do you know where we're going?" Connor asked. "I thought I was following you," Alex said. "What? Since when do we follow me?" Connor said. A shadow was creeping toward them from down the hall. As it got closer, they could see it was a silhouette of a guard. "A guard," Alex whispered and pointed at the shadow. They ran down the hall and entered the first room they found. The room was pitch black. "Where are we now?" Connor asked. "Why are you asking me questions? You know I don't have the answers," Alex said. Alex waited by the door and listened for the guards to pass by. Connor moved around the room with his hands stretched out in the darkness so he wouldn't bump into anything. Their eyes began to adjust to the darkness. "Alex, I think I can see something." Connor walked right into what he thought was a doorway and suddenly saw a pale face staring back at him. He fell to the floor with fear. He screamed as quietly as he could. "Alex, there's someone standing over there in the doorway. He's so creepy and ugly," Connor said, pointing up. Alex ran to his side and squinted her eyes to see what he was talking about. "That's not a doorway, that's a mirror, you idiot," Alex said. "Oh," Connor said, and Alex helped him up to his feet. "Oh my, what big claws you have," said a voice behind Alex and Connor, causing them both to jump 5 feet into the air. They turned to see an enormous 4-poster bed with silky red sheets and lacy white curtains around it. In the bed, talking in her sleep, was Queen Red Riding Hood. "We're in the Queen's bedroom," Connor whispered to Alex. "Oh my, what a big nose you have, Grandma," Red said, still very much asleep. "She having a nightmare?" Connor asked. "Oh my, what big sharp teeth you have." "Wolf!" Red screamed and sat straight up in her bed awake. Alex and Connor dropped to the floor out of her view. She was out of breath, and beads of sweat appeared on her forehead. She finally caught her breath. "Not again," she said, and then frustrated laid back down to sleep. Alex and Connor were afraid to move. "Did she go back to sleep yet?" Connor asked. "How are we supposed to tell?" Alex asked. "Oh my, what big strong arms you have, Jack," Red said. "I'm guessing she's asleep," Connor said, and confidently stood. "Oh my, what soft lips you have, Jack," Red said. "Let's get out of here," Connor said. They emerged back into the hall and traveled around the castle for a while longer. All the halls looked so familiar, it seemed impossible to find the basket room. Every time they thought they had found the right door, they found themselves in a drawing room or a dining room or a ballroom. "Let's find the entrance and retrace our steps to the throne room," Alex began, but Connor interrupted her. "No need. The baskets are in here," he said, and pointed to a door beside them. "How do you know?" Alex asked him. "Because I remember that portrait of Red being right next to the basket room," Connor said, and pointed to a portrait where Red Riding Hood was barely clothed, with only a wolfskin covering her. Alex gave Connor a really dirty look. "What?" Connor asked with a smirk. "It's memorable." They pushed the door open and found the room they had spent the entire afternoon in earlier. "Let's take it from where we left off," Alex said. She and Connor split up and headed to the areas they had last searched. It had been hard during the day, but it was even harder at night since they had only the light from their lanterns to go by. After a few hours of searching, their anxiety levels were as high as Jack's beanstalk. Suddenly, the twins heard a loud clank. "What was that?" Alex said. "Alex, look up there," Connor said, pointing to a window. On the window ledge was a shiny X-shaped object. "What is that?" Alex asked. "It's a grappling hook," Connor said. It jerked slightly in a consistent pattern. "I think someone's climbing up. Hide!" They left their lanterns on the ground and dove behind a pile of baskets. I wonder who it is. Think about it. Who else is trying to find a piece of the basket? Who else might be trying to find the pieces to the wishing spell? This could be really bad. A moment later, a figure appeared on the window ledge. It took out a sharp knife and cut off a huge circle in the window and then quickly crawled into the room. It was a woman who the twins had never seen before. Her clothing was made out of plant leaves sewn together, and her hair was a shade of red so dark it almost seemed purple. The woman scanned the room and looked cautiously at the two lanterns. Did she know the twins were in there? Like an animal, the woman began sniffing around the room. She searched through the baskets as she sniffed, discarded some by tossing them behind her. She went around the room using her nose as her guide, until finally she locked in on one direction. She climbed on the top of a pile of baskets to reach the top of a shelf. She reached her hand to the back of the shelf and pulled out a basket. It had a rim made of tree bark. Alex and Connor looked at each other. There it is. The woman carved a big chunk of bark out of the basket and then tucked it safely into her belt. She put the basket back on the shelf and climbed down the pile of baskets and headed for the window. She was just about to climb through the window when she heard an "Ah!" come from the other side of the room. Connor had given himself another splinter from hiding behind the baskets. "Connor," Alex mouthed. "Sorry," he mouthed back. The woman walked towards where they were hiding. She squinted in their direction for a moment. Alex and Connor were both too frightened even to breathe. She knew they were there. What was she going to do to them? The woman looked to the ground at one of their lanterns, and a coy smile appeared on her face. She kicked it into a pile of baskets and disappeared through the window and back down the rope connected to the grappling hook. "That was a close one," Connor said. "Good thing she didn't find us or we'd be in some—" "Connor, look!" Alex said. The pile of baskets the woman had kicked the lantern into was on fire. "Oh boy," Connor said. "We've got to get out of here." "Not until I get a piece of that basket," Alex said. She reached into her bag and pulled out the dagger. She ran up the pile of baskets to the top of the shelf, just as she had seen the woman do. She wasn't as tall as the woman, so she had to reach up further to get it. "Alex, hurry," Connor said. The fire was growing and spreading around the room to the different piles and stacks of baskets. He tried blowing the fire out, but it didn't work. These were large flames, not birthday candles. Alex had to climb up onto the shelf to reach the basket, but she finally wrapped her fingers around it. "Gotcha," Alex said, pulling it out. The bark around the rim had two chunks missing, one from whoever had written the journal and the other from whoever the woman was. Alex sank her dagger into the basket and began cutting out a piece of it. "Alex, unless you want to leave this place extra crispy, I suggest you hurry," Connor yelled. Half of the room was ablaze. It was becoming unbearably hot inside the room. Dark smoke was filling the air, making it hard to breathe. "I got it," Alex said, and made her way down to Connor. The flames had covered the door they had entered from. "How do we get out of here?" Alex yelled. The sound of running footsteps came from the hall outside the door. Through the flames, the twins could see the faces of several alarmed guards. Fire! Fire in the castle! A guard yelled. Get the queen to safety! Get some water! Another guard pointed directly at the twins. You two! Stay where you are. Not likely, Connor yelled. He picked up a particularly heavy basket and threw it at a window, causing it to shatter. He grabbed his sister's hand and pulled her toward it. They breathed in the fresh air from outside. Look, the watermill is right below us, Connor said, and started climbing out of the window and down toward it. He helped his sister out of the window, and they climbed down the watermill together. Halfway down, flames burst through all the windows in the basket room. The entire room was an inferno. The watermill began to turn from the twins' weight, and they fell straight into the moat, which wouldn't have been such a rough landing if the moat had been deeper than 3 feet. The twins clambered out of the moat and began running as fast as they could away from the castle. No guards or soldiers were chasing them. They all must have been inside the castle trying to put out the fire. Alex and Connor ran out of the town and were on their way toward the eastern gate of the Red Riding Hood kingdom in a matter of minutes. They only looked back once and saw that almost half of the castle was now on fire. A thick trail of smoke filled the sky. Was that the 4th or 5th time we've narrowly escaped death this week? Connor asked. Who was that woman? Alex said, and why was she looking for the basket too? Thank God she found it, otherwise we may have never gotten out, Connor said. The most worrisome thought came to Alex's mind. Connor, you don't think someone else is collecting items for the wishing spell, do you? He had to think about it, but she could see it was just as troubling for him to consider it as it was for her. I doubt it, Connor said. Think about all the trouble the man who wrote the journal went through to learn about it. I'd be shocked if someone else knew anything about it. Alex nodded. They both knew it was very unlikely, but the possibility still lingered in their heads. A few hours later, the twins could see the eastern gate of the Red Riding Hood kingdom wall in the distance. The guards must have extinguished the fire in the castle because there was no more smoke filling the air. The night sky was at its darkest just before dawn. As they reached the gate, they could see something moving near it. Spooked from the events earlier, Alex and Connor dove behind a bush and watched from afar. It was a man pacing near the gate. He was tall and seemed young. There was something oddly familiar about him. Is that Jack? Alex asked. Connor took a closer look. It is. What is he doing all the way out here? Suddenly, a hooded figure came into view on the other side of the gate. Who was that? Connor asked. Jack carefully approached the gate. There was so much tension between him and whoever was on the other side of the gate that even the twins could feel it. He had been waiting for whoever it was all night. Hello, Jack, said the hooded figure. Hello, Goldie, he said. And then the twins realized who it was. Goldilocks. She was wearing the dark maroon coat they had seen her wearing in the dwarf forest. How do they know each other? Alex asked. Connor shook his head. No idea. I saw your dove, Jack said. I knew you must have sent it. I did, Goldilocks said. I knew you would recognize it. Doves are hard to train these days. The twins could tell from the way they were standing that Goldilocks and Jack had much to say to each other. But they said very little. Instead, they just stared into each other's eyes with their bodies pressed against the bars between them. I hate these bars between us. It's either the bars of this gate or the bars of a prison, I'm afraid, Goldilocks said. I worry about you constantly, Jack said. I'm a big girl. I can take care of myself, Goldilocks said. I wish you would let me come with you, Jack said. You know I'd pack my things and leave right now if you would let me. No sense in ruining 2 lives, Goldilocks said. You'll find someone else someday. You've been saying that since you left, yet here I am, year after year, meeting you in the shadows, Jack said. She's the one he's in love with, Alex said, putting the pieces together. She is the reason Jack won't marry Red Riding Hood. She is the girl the harp was telling us about. Oh, Connor said, this is like a soap opera. Jack placed his hands over Goldilocks' hands. I swear, if I ever find the person who wrote you that letter, I'll kill them, Jack said. They're the reason for this whole mess. What is done, and it can never be undone, Goldilocks said. She and Jack were touching foreheads through the bars. "One day I'll clear your name," Jack said. "I promise, and then we can be together." "Clear my name," Goldilocks said, and backed away from him. "I'm a fugitive, Jack. I steal, I run, I even kill when I have to. No one can clear me of that. It's who I am. It's what I've become." "It didn't start off as your fault, and you know it," Jack said. Goldilocks grew silent. "I love you, Jack. And I know you love me. You don't have to say it. I just know." "I'm a criminal, and you're a hero," Goldilocks said, with teary eyes. A flame may love a snowflake, but they can never be together without each other harming the other." "Then let me melt you," Jack said. He reached through the gate and pulled Goldilocks close to him, and they kissed. Alex became misty-eyed. Connor scrunched up his face as if he had smelt something foul. "Good thing those bars are between them," Connor said. "Shut up, Connor," Alex said. Goldilocks pushed herself away from Jack. "I have to go," she said. "I have to be as far away from this place as I can get by sunrise." "Let me come with you," Jack begged. "No," Goldilocks said. "When will I see you next? A week, a month, a year?" he asked. Porridge walked up behind Goldilocks. She leaped up onto the horse's back and took a hold of the reins. "Just wait for the dove," she said, and rode off into the night on her cream-colored horse. Jack watched her until she wasn't visible anymore. Suddenly, all the life in his body faded away, and he once again became the sad man the twins had met earlier. He sadly turned away from the gate and slowly headed home. "I guess not every fairy tale character gets a happily ever after," Alex said. Alex and Connor ran up to the gate. It was locked, so they had to climb over it, finally making their way out of the Red Riding Hood Kingdom, just as the sun started to rise. And that's the end of chapter 10. That was a really long one. Now you understand why I had to break it into 2 parts. However, I'm excited to start chapter 11 with you tomorrow. Here's a sneak peek. It's called The Troll in Goblin Territory. We've already run into one troll, the troll with the bridge. So I'm really curious about what this chapter is going to be about. It's a little shorter. We might be able to finish it in one setting. I'm not sure. But I hope that you'll do the activities that I post in the description of this video, that you'll answer the questions, and I really hope you enjoyed that chapter. I know that I did. It's fun to see how Alex and Connor are going on this journey and to use our imaginations to picture it. Everything that they do, I'm just picturing it in my mind, and it's crazy, but it's super fun. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Know that I miss you. I miss you a lot, but I'm really glad that I'm getting to read this story to you and talk to you every week. I care about you, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye, guys.